So the next film we watched was J'ai tué ma mère,
It's about our
Xavier
next
Dolan's
film.
directorial debut. He wrote, produced, directed, and starred in it. The movie is about a 16-year-old boy named Hubert who lives with his single mother, and they have a very fraught relationship. Movie is basically just about his relationship with his mother and like how that develops just being a teenager and they don't really get along. And then also, it is about he has a boyfriend, and so it's also just about kind of the impact of like homosexuality, being a teenager, and having a difficult relationship with your mother.
Very good. Thank you, Abby. I think it's very important that we have a Quebecy film on, and it did not disappoint. I really enjoyed this film. I thought the two lead performances were really compelling. They had really good chemistry. I thought it was a realistic portrayal of a dysfunctional child-parent relationship. You can see how sort of selfish and self-indulgent the teenager is, and how loving but also resentful and fed up the mother is at times. And very, very well shot. I thought that the film just had a really good mood. It wasn't about a big forward trajectory to the story. It was just about everyday life and the sort of feelings and what these characters are going through in their situation. And yeah, very impressive debut film from this director, who I think was 20 years old when he made it. And the reason he wanted to make it so young is because he wanted to still be able to be in touch with those feelings of teenage angst. But yeah, really, really like this one. What did you think, Scott?
I thought that. Oh well, I was really impressed when I found out he directed, wrote, and produced it and acted in it. It was very impressive from that perspective. It was very clearly a film made by someone who didn't have their own children yet, and so they did. He did have a very good perspective of the teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But I've watched that film with 3 kids of my own, and I'm like, man, that mom probably just tried her hardest.
No, go ahead.
She's just doing her best, and you're just so resentful. You just don't have that perspective from a teenager. It's very true, but if I watched that movie before I had kids, I would have felt very differently about it. But now that I have some kids, I'm like, man, as a parent, you just try your best, and you have no idea if you're going to succeed or if you're going to fail, or what type of relationship you'll have with your child eventually. You're just hoping for the best, but as so it struck me that that mom, she takes the brunt of his hate because the father divorced and then left, and the kid still likes the dad more, even though he's never around. And she's just doing a whole bunch to make sure that he's able to survive in school and survive herself. And he just doesn't respect that. And so because he has his own things going on in his life, and that's fine, but that's the perspective that the movie's from. And I couldn't empathize with the character as much as I might have been able to before I had children. And I just felt really bad for the mom.
I was watching this movie,
I felt really bad for the mom.
It reminded me so. I have an older brother who's he's only 2 years older than me, so I grew up with him when he was in his teens, and he never got along with my parents, and I always was just like, why are you not willing to compromise? My parents are being so rational. Hubert reminded me a lot of my brother, just how much he was just being so difficult for the sake of being difficult. But then as the movie went on, the mom is kind of a bitch, and I empathize a lot with her, and obviously she's trying her best, but there were some scenes where I was like, she was also just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. When she told him, when she was going to the store, and she was like, oh, I'll drop you off to go get a movie, and then he's taking too long to get the movie, and she comes in and starts yelling at him, and she sees he's in line to buy the movie, and I was just, I don't think it was all Hubert's fault. I think it's just a difficult situation for both of them. Obviously, I don't have kids though, so I don't know perspective of being a parent, but I did find the depiction very accurate just to what I saw growing up, although I don't think my mom ever personally did anything like that to my brother. I think it was mostly my brother just being very difficult for the sake of being difficult because he was a teenager, and that kind of thing. But I do think that the movie did a good job showing that it wasn't all his fault. but the mom also was trying very hard, like, especially, after she sent him away and she, had that when he ran away and she's like on the phone with the principal or whatever from the school and he's being an asshole and she's like has a whole total breakdown of just about how hard it is, being a single mom and like trying your best and stuff.
Yeah, I think the film is mostly from the teenager's perspective, but I think it does sympathize with the mum. There's several moments. I think the most moving moments to me were where she is remembering how close they were when he was a child and how that's changed. And when she says, we used to talk, and he says something like, "I was 4, I had no one else to talk to." Like that is so heartbreaking, and it shows how selfish he's being and how hard she's trying. And also when he says, if I was to die today, would you even care? What would you do? And he leaves, and she whispers, "I would die tomorrow." Like it's clear that she loves him and she is trying her best. But I also think she's got a few issues. She seems to change her mind a lot. Like she'll agree with him on one thing, and then the next day she'll disagree. And also, yeah, she kind of lashes out at him at different points, not always without justification. He's being a brat in the car, and she keeps saying, "Do a survey, do a survey. How many of your friends get a free drive to school?" And he's like, "What are you always talking about surveys?" But yeah, the bit where she's sort of scolding him in front of all the people in the video store was a bit much. So I kind of understand. Like she's exhausted and she's having to parent him by herself while the ex-husband, just does whatever he wants and doesn't get punished for it. The son isn't resentful of the father. He only resents the mother, the one who stayed. Doesn't
It's
quite
supposed to
get
be semi-autobiographical,
the
like, so I'm not
mother's.
sure exactly much of it is actually like from his life, but he does seem to write a
Yeah.
lot of movies about dysfunctional relationships between sons and their moms because he's got Mommy, which is his another movie by him that is also about like a very dysfunctional relationship between a son and a mom.
Mm.
So I think there is also probably he has some issues that he likes to write about from his own life.
And a lot of Hubert's angst seems to just be, normal hormonal teenage angst and selfishness. But a lot of it seems to be a sense of rejection. Like he feels rejected by his dad. He knows to some degree that his mum resents him. And he's almost like prematurely trying to reject her or distance himself from her. Maybe that's kind of what I thought was happening. But I think it's both. I think the mother can struggle with raising him and struggle with his behavior at times, but also
I
love
think
him
also
unconditionally.
because you get those the videos that he films, in between, and he's talking about how he's like, I love my mom, but like not like a son loves their
Mm,
mom, just like I love another person, like he doesn't understand that he actually does love his mom because she's his mom, and it's not like he feels like he doesn't
mm,
have the correct son mother relationship because he sees his boyfriend and his mom and like they have a very good relationship, but she's also kind of weird. And it's like you never really know what other people's relationships with their
mm,
parents are like, and so you feel like yours must be wrong, and there's something that's not right, and he doesn't really understand that, like, no, he has like a I want to say a normal relationship with his mom because he obviously doesn't because and that's like partially his fault, but he feels like he doesn't have what everyone else has, and maybe that's partly because he has a single parent, and that's this movie might be a bit about that too, just like being in a non-traditional family and that kind of thing as well.
mhm.
Well, plus, and then you only ever see like a sliver of someone else's relationship with their parent, right? Like when you would go over to a friend's house and see how they interacted, like that's one interaction out of many that happened that day. So he's like idolizing a relationship because he's filling in the blanks, and he's coming up wanting because he feels like his is
And then
bad,
there's
but
also
he doesn't see the bad relationships necessarily
yeah.
with like
And
his
then there's like,
boyfriend,
with the teacher
and
when
that
she's
his
talking about
mom
how like
might
she's like,
have
"Oh, I
as
haven't talked to my
well.
dad in 10 years." And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, the grass
when
was
he
always greener, I
feels like he
guess.
can rely on
Yeah.
her, she's like, "Oh, my dad called me recently," and doesn't really understand that like relationships can change, stuff. And I know you had this in the show notes to like ask about what the point of the teacher was, and my answer is I have no idea what the point of the teacher was. But I do think that was interesting because it was like he felt like he had, an ally who was like, oh, like there is someone who doesn't talk to their parent and they're an adult, and like that is a thing that happens in real life. Some people just they don't talk to their parents for, X reason, and that's fine. But when she left, he didn't understand. He didn't, it's like someone who he felt understood him, like turned their back on him as well.
Mm. And I think he's searching for a role model or a parent figure, and that's one of the people he thought might have been able to fit that mold or might have been able to confide in, because he just doesn't feel like he can confide in his mother, and the mother wants him to confide, but they just don't have that connection at the moment. But I thought it was interesting how, like, all through the movie, the mother is telling him how selfish you are, but it's not until the boyfriend says, you're really selfish, that he realizes, oh, it's not just me and my mum bickering. I actually
I really liked that scene because
can be selfish, and I actually do
when
need
the
to
boyfriend
reflect
first
on my
picks him up,
behavior, and
to take him
maybe
to the
part of this is my
cottage,
fault.
I was like, oh my God, this kid is so selfish. Like, getting his boyfriend to come get him and like drive him around. And I was like not expecting them to comment on that. And I just found that very, very nice because it was like, like putting into words what I'd been feeling a lot of the movie. It was very, very like, especially because, he's hearing it from someone who's like his peer, his age and stuff. And I thought that was good. And then it, it helped tie in the end of the movie, where it's like he and his mom can work through their relationship, and, it's not always going to be great, but like he has someone who will be there for him.
Yeah. And I thought that was sweet, that idea of returning to like childhood, kind of Garden of Eden. I'm returning to my kingdom. I'm returning to that place where I was a kid, where I felt my sort of could bask in my mother's love, and we were really connected and whole. And she meets him there. That was really sweet. And it's not an easy fix. Like, it's not saying, oh, they're fine now, but it's like, maybe it's like a bit of a breakthrough.
When you're a teenager, your relationship with your parents can be pretty fraught because you have such a strong idea of what you think is right, and your parents are trying to establish boundaries to try to like control your teenage impulses, which a lot of teenagers have bad impulses. So it feels very true when you're trying to rebel against these boundaries and push these boundaries as a teenager. And then later, when you're a little older, sometimes you revisit those things and you look at it and you're like, oh, those boundaries were in place for a reason. Like, my parents didn't hate me. They were just trying to help shape me into a better human, kind of in the best way that they knew possible. And then that's not necessarily always right, but like it is, they are trying to do something, not just make you mad.
They're not there to torture you. One last point I had was going back to our discussion on like the sort of French-Quebec relationship. This film seems to take a big inspiration from the French film 400 Blows from the 50s, which also takes the premise of a teenage boy telling his teacher that his mother is dead. That sort of teenage mother dysfunctional relationship.
If
you like this movie, definitely check out the 400 Blows.
Not sure many people saw
theaters.
this movie.
It was like it did really well at Cannes, I think.
Yeah,
but like I think domestically and in America too, it just like didn't. Canadian movies never do well in North America outside of Quebec because you have to usually go to a foreign film theater to see them. But I know it did very well overseas.
Wikipedia says that it made $32,000. So.
Wait,
damn.
It had a budget of $800,000. Oh, oof.
Yes, it is.
It's not even US dollars. It doesn't seem to have had a bad effect on Xavier Dolan's career, though.
No,
he made a lot of movies.
It was really funny looking up his work. He does so much voiceover work.
Adele's Hello music video,
like translations. He was Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter movies for the Quebec translation.
Getting his name out there. Financially, I guess it was not very good.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But the backers are not happy.
The backers were the Quebec government, so anything to sell Quebec, they're pretty happy.
Fair enough.